What is the measure of love in an age where everything can be quantified? On Valentine's Day, while millions exchanged flowers and chocolates, Soo-kai stood before Tan Songyun and signed over his entire company. Not a share, not a partnership stake. Everything. The production empire he had spent a decade building transferred completely into her hands. His mother, watching from across the room, collapsed into a chair, overcome by the magnitude of what her son had just done. And in that moment, the definition of romantic gesture was forever changed. The story begins 3 months earlier, in a lawyer's office in downtown Shanghai, where Soo-kai sat surrounded by contracts, explaining to increasingly alarmed attorneys that he wanted to transfer full ownership of his production company to Tan Songyun. Not as CEO, not as partner, as sole owner with complete legal control. The lawyers tried to talk him out of it. They presented alternatives, joint ventures with protections, partnership agreements with safeguards. They showed him statistics about business relationships that fail. He listened patiently to every argument. Then he told them to proceed with the full transfer. What the lawyers did not understand was that this was not a business decision disguised as romance. This was a deliberate rejection of the careful calculation that governs modern relationships. He was choosing trust over protection, vulnerability over safety, making a gesture so extreme it could not be misunderstood as anything other than complete faith. Soo-kai's production company represented more than financial value, though that value was substantial. Conservative estimates placed it at over $50 million, but beyond money was something more precious. The company was his creative freedom, his ability to choose roles that mattered, his power to tell stories he believed in. In an industry where actors are treated as interchangeable parts, ownership meant autonomy. And he was giving it all to Tan Songyun. The legal process took weeks. Every step gave him opportunity to reconsider, to pull back, to choose safer alternatives. But he moved forward with absolute certainty, signing each document without hesitation. His mother knew nothing about it. His family had always been protective, cautious about anyone who might be attracted to his wealth or fame. They liked Tan Songyun, but this level of entanglement was something else entirely. He planned to tell his mother after Valentine's Day, presenting it as fait accompli. But Valentine's Day would change those plans. February 14th began quietly. Soo-kai had arranged a private dinner at an upscale restaurant, but that morning his mother called. She was in Shanghai unexpectedly. Could she join them for lunch? He could not refuse without explaining why this day needed to remain private. After lunch, Soo-kai suggested they go to his office. He had something important to show them. They settled in the conference room. He placed a folder on the table, legal documents. Then he began to explain. He told them about the months of planning, about the lawyers' objections, about the restructuring that had been happening invisibly. He told them that as of this morning, Tan Songyun was the sole owner of his production company, that every asset had been transferred, that the business he had built was now completely hers. The silence that followed was absolute. His mother's face went white, not with anger but with shock so profound it was almost physical. She gripped the table as if the room had tilted. Tan Songyun sat frozen, staring at the documents without reaching for them. His mother found her voice first, not with fury but with fear. She asked if he understood what he had done, if he comprehended the risk, if he had considered what would happen if this relationship ended. Soo-kai's response was simple. He said he had considered everything, every risk, every potential disaster, and he had decided that some things were worth more than safety. That trust, when given completely, created a bond that could not be formed any other way. But there was more. He explained that the company had always been as much hers as his, that she had contributed ideas, provided counsel, shaped decisions, that he was tired of the fiction that separated contribution from ownership. This was not a gift. This was recognition of what had always been true. His mother struggled with this. She loved Tan Songyun, trusted her even, but this felt reckless, dangerous. She asked to speak with Soo-kai privately. He gently refused. Whatever needed to be said could be said in front of Tan Songyun. There were no more secrets. His mother turned to Tan Songyun and asked the question that cut to the heart of everything. Did she understand what this meant? Not just the financial value, but the responsibility, the weight of holding someone's entire professional life in her hands. Tan Songyun said yes. She understood completely. She understood that Su Kai had just made himself completely vulnerable, had placed himself entirely in her power. She understood that this created obligation. She would honor that obligation or die trying. Then she said something that would be repeated endlessly afterward. She said that Su Kai had not given her the company. He had given her his trust, and trust was heavier than any asset, more valuable than any fortune. His mother broke down then, not with anger but with overwhelming emotion. She wept because she recognized the magnitude of what she was witnessing. Her son had just crossed a threshold that most people never approach, had chosen vulnerability on a scale that terrified her even as she acknowledged its strange, terrible beauty. The news leaked 3 days later. Entertainment media erupted. The story dominated headlines for weeks. The response was sharply divided. Some saw it as the ultimate romantic gesture. Others saw it as reckless, even pathological. But what critics missed was that this was not about romance in any conventional sense. This was about power and how it functions in relationships. In a world where celebrities carefully guard assets, where the assumption is that love requires hedging your bets, Su Kai had chosen the opposite. He had made hedging impossible. He had forced himself to believe completely in another person's integrity. Tan Songyun's first decision as owner came 2 weeks after the transfer. A major studio had offered a lucrative deal for a romantic comedy franchise. It was exactly what financial advisors would recommend. She turned it down. Instead, she greenlit an experimental documentary about migrant workers, a film with virtually no commercial potential but significant artistic value. The documentary won awards but lost money. But Su Kai defended the decision publicly, explaining that the company had never been purely about profit, that its value lay in its ability to take creative risks. His mother, in a rare interview months later, admitted she had been wrong to doubt. She had come to understand that what looked like romantic madness was actually a sophisticated form of partnership, one that created mutual obligation so profound that failure became unthinkable. 1 year after the Valentine's Day transfer, the company had doubled in value. Not through safe commercial projects, but through bold, creative choices that built reputation and attracted talent. Tan Songyun had proven herself not just competent, but visionary. More significantly, their relationship had deepened in ways that seemed impossible. The complete vulnerability that the transfer required had created a bond that transcended normal partnership. Critics continued to warn this could end in disaster, and they were not wrong. The risk was real. But Su Kai and Tan Songyun had decided that some things were worth risking everything for, that complete trust created possibilities that careful protection could never access. The Valentine's Day gift was not flowers or jewelry. It was freedom and responsibility and trust made tangible. It was a man saying he believed in a woman's capacity so completely that he would stake his entire life's work on her judgment. It was the creation of mutual vulnerability so profound that betrayal became literally unthinkable. His mother no longer worries. Or rather, she worries with recognition that her son has chosen a path that makes worry irrelevant. He has made success the only option because failure would destroy everything. And in that absolute commitment, he has created something that looks from outside like madness, but from inside feels like the only sane choice he ever made. Valentine's Day came and went, but the gift remains, growing more valuable with each year, with each decision that proves the transfer was not reckless but visionary. Not a moment of romantic madness, but the founding document of a partnership that rewrote the rules of what love could mean, what it could create, what it could accomplish when freed from the careful protections that usually constrain it.